Hello, I'm Walter Block. I am a professor of economics at Loyola University, New Orleans. I was born in Brooklyn. I went to Madison High School, Brooklyn College, and Columbia University, where I got my PhD in 1972. I'm Jewish. I'm not practicing, but I was bar mitzvahed. My mother is Jewish. So I guess I qualify. When the next Hitler comes around, I'll be on the list. This is my endorsement for Ron Paul. I've known Ron for 3 decades, something like that. Who counts when you're having fun? I had dinners, lunches with him. I've hugged him. I've shook his hand. I've spent a lot of time in his presence. In the last couple of weeks, I've done nothing but listen to him speak on radio and TV and all. And my Judar, or my nose for anti-Semitism, I think is as good as anyone else's. And I've never saw a scintilla of any anti-Semitism in him, and I greatly resent the fact that he is considered anti-Semitic and that the Republican Jewish Coalition and other groups didn't even have the decency to invite him to their group. And what I'd like to do is give you my reasons. And my reasons are mainly a denial or a refutation, if you will, of the arguments on the ground that he is an anti-Semite. So let me go through some of the points and see how we go. First of all, his two favorite economists are both Jewish. One is Murray Rothbard, the other is Ludwig von Mises. It's hard to see how a good, real anti-Semite would have his two favorite economists both Jewish. And he doesn't mince any words about this. He sees the Austrian School of Economics, of which Murray Rothbard and Ludwig von Mises are the leaders. He sees this as crucial, as important. He's always talking about it. No anti-Semite worthy of his salt, would say that two Jewish economists are his favorite economists. Okay, but he wants to cut off aid to Israel. That sounds horrible. I mean, poor Israel, surrounded by enemies. However, it's not that he wants to cut off aid for Israel. He wants to cut off aid for all countries because he thinks that foreign aid is incompatible with the Constitution. And he thinks that it undermines sovereignty, especially of Israel. That's a case in point. But the point is that the Arab countries altogether get a lot more aid from the U.S. than does Israel. So if the Arab countries get, say, twice as much aid as Israel and you cut it all off, then relatively speaking, Israel gains. So how is this anti-Semitic? How is this anti-Israel? Certainly, the money from the Jewish community in the U.S., private donations to Israel would be unaffected. If anything, it might even increase because under Ron Paul, our country, the United States, would have less unemployment and be much wealthier and richer, prosperous, and the Jewish community and others, Christians, who want to contribute to Israel would be allowed to. Certainly, Ron Paul wouldn't stop them from doing that. And the Arab American community in the U.S. is much smaller, so I think that relatively speaking, when you cut off all aid to all foreign countries, not just Israel, of course, you benefit Israel. You do not harm Israel. So the argument that he's an anti-Semite on that ground is just silly. Second point, sovereignty. He who pays the piper calls the tune. It's an aphorism that I think has got a lot of truth in it. And when the U.S. Pays Israel foreign aid, a lot of money, before Israel can sneeze, they have to ask if the U.S. will give permission. Obama says that Israel and its neighbors should have a discussion on treaties and that the 1967 border should be the starting point. Who is he to interfere with something that's none of his business? Why should Obama have anything to say about the Israeli borders? Certainly, a President Ron Paul would not tell Israel that 1967 borders are the starting point and you have to negotiate from there. Condoleezza Rice, during the Bush administration, didn't give Israel permission to take out the nuclear power plants in Syria, which Israel regarded as a danger. And she had enough power to make them postpone it. Well, this is a disgrace. What's going on here? What about the sovereignty of Israel? Israel has to ask U.S. permission before they build a house in Jerusalem. Uh, Before they sneeze, as I say, before they defend themselves. Maybe their defense is disproportionate, and they have to worry that the U.S. will say, oh, well, this is disproportionate, it's no good. Third point, Iran. Iran is crazy. Meshuggah is in there. Ahmadinejad says that they're going to wipe Israel off the map, which is a mistranslation of what he actually said. Iran hasn't invaded any countries in the last, I don't know, 100 years or so. I'm no historian. I don't know the exact facts here. But the Iraq-Iran war was an attack on Iran by Iraq. Namely, Iraq was the initiator of this. So you can hardly discredit Iran for anything coming around on that basis. Ron Paul doesn't say he looks with equanimity on Iran getting a nuclear bomb. He's against all nuclear bombs. If he had his way, nuclear bombs would be banned. They're per se invasive weapons. They can't distinguish between the guilty and the innocent. So he's not in favor of that, as many commentators have said. But what he did say is that Israel can defend himself. And Netanyahu and many other Israeli leaders have said they're perfectly capable of defending themselves. The idea that Iran, let's stipulate that they will get a nuclear bomb, if not this year, if not then next year, if not next year, in 5 years, who knows? Let's say eventually they'll get it. Well, the U.S. and the Soviet Union had 3 decades, 4 decades of MAD, M-A-D, mutual assured destruction, and not one weapon was fired. The idea that Iran would get one nuclear weapon and then bomb Israel is just crazy. They know that if they did it on the next instant, there'd be no more Iran because Israel has gotten way more weapons than that. Israel is perfectly willing and able to defend itself. The Zionist philosophy is one of self-reliance, among other things. This undermining of the sovereignty takes away their ability to fight. Look, if Ron Paul were president in 1956, which is a little bit of contrary to fact history, which is always suspect, but let me engage in some of that. The Greater Israel would now include the Sinai Peninsula because Eisenhower made Israel give up the Sinai Peninsula in 1956. So this is just one more instance of the loss of sovereignty. Okay, the next one is the concentration camps. Ron Paul, I think, mistakenly said that the Gaza is like a concentration camp. Now, when an Israeli or a Jew or pretty much anyone else, well, maybe not anyone else, but certainly when a Jewish person hears the word concentration camp, you think of only one thing, Nazi concentration camps. But there are other kinds of concentration camps. There was the concentration camp that the Americans and the Canadians, I think, I'm pretty sure of that, had for the Japanese during World War II. That's also a concentration camp, but it's a very different kind of concentration camp than a Nazi concentration camp, and it's a little closer than to what is happening in the Gaza. Internment camps would be a better word than even that kind of concentration camp. This is a slip of the tongue as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the man is not an anti-Semite. He slipped his tongue. Look, Obama once said that in the U.S. there were 57 or 58 states. People have a slip of the tongue. I think Ron Paul was not as sensitive as he could have been, but okay, so he made a mistake in saying that. One swallow doesn't make a summer or something like that. One error doesn't make him into an anti-Semite. But wait, he took pictures with KKK members, with neo-Nazis, with all sorts of bad guys. Look, when Ron Paul gives a speech, he gets standing applause all over the place, and then afterward you get hundreds of people coming by, 5 seconds each to take a picture. Ron doesn't know them. He doesn't know them from a hole in the wall. He takes a picture with anyone who wants to take a picture with him. Some KKK or a neo-Nazi or other low-life type person took a picture with him. Ron doesn't know about that. He'll take a picture with anyone, unless he knows, obviously, then he wouldn't, but he doesn't know this. So the idea that he had a picture with somebody that he shouldn't have a picture with is crazy. Then there's the argument, well, but the neo-Nazis and the KKK and these other types donate money to him. And he accepts it, and he doesn't give it back. Well, fine. What Ron says, and I think it's correct, they support him. He doesn't support them. Look, suppose one of these people, a KKK or a neo-Nazi, gives him $1,000. Which is it better, for Ron to have the 1,000 and not the Nazis, or for the neo-Nazi? Sorry, got to be politically correct, I guess. Or for the neo-Nazi to have the money. Obviously, better for Ron Paul to have the money, better for the good guys to have the money and power than the bad guys. So I don't see why, just because you take money from people who are evil, you're an anti-Semite, or people who are anti-Semites, that you're evil because you take the money and you don't give it back. But wait, there's another one. I've got a whole list here. The U.S. is a guarantor. If anything worse comes to worse, all the Arabs attack. Look, all the Arabs attacked in 1946 when there was really no Israeli government. There was just I don't know, the Irgun people and the Stern people. I'm a little weak on history here, but they didn't really have much of an army, and yet they beat them all back. They beat them in 56. Then all of a sudden they have to start fighting with one or two hands behind their back, and things don't go as well. But there's no question that all the Arab countries, if they got together, could overrun Israel. That's crazy. If there was any question, we know who would win any war. But wait, the U.S. is a guarantor. Well, ask the South Vietnamese what kind of a guarantor the U.S. is. Who do you trust to safeguard Israel? Netanyahu and other Israeli leaders, or someone like Mitt Romney or Obama or Hillary Clinton? Well, the answer is pretty obvious. Let me talk about the Republican-Jewish coalition for a minute, because I'm running out of arguments to refute. And I really have it in for the Republican-Jewish coalition. Look, we Jews are supposed to be people of the book. Well, what does people of the book mean? People of the book means people who are open to ideas. Well, Ron Paul has different ideas. You don't let him in. You undermine the claim that we're people of the book, that we're intellectuals, that we're open to discuss. This is like the ostrich sticking his head into the sand. In chess, I play chess. I'm not very good at it, but I know that every time you make a move, what you're supposed to say to yourself is, well, if I do this, if I move the queen here, what will he do? What will my opponent do? Well, the Republican-Jewish coalition should have said, well, if I don't allow Ron Paul in here, what will happen to me or my group or to the Jews in general? Well, do you really, Ron Paul has a chance to become president. Yeah, I know everyone says, well, he can't be. Donald Trump says it's impossible, and other people say it's impossible. Mitt Romney says it's impossible. They all say, the New York Times, and who would know better, they say it's impossible. But it could happen. I don't know. I think he's got a good chance. I think if he gets the Republican nomination, he is going to kick Obama's butt from here to there, because Obama has violated his promise for hope and change, because he hasn't changed anything, and a lot of his adherents don't much like his bombing and drone missiles and all that stuff. And they don't like a lot of what he's doing about killing Americans without a trial and sticking them in a Guantanamo. But suppose he does become president. What does it say? I mean, Ron Paul wouldn't take it amiss, but isn't it risky to slap a potential president in the face by saying you're not good enough to come to our debate? This is very risky on the Republican-Jewish coalition's part, apart from any other problem with it. Let me come to a conclusion. I probably run on too long, but I'm a professor, so I have to do this. If I don't babble on, they'll kick me out of the professoriate. Ron Paul is a friend of mine. I regard him as a friend. He regards me as a friend. He's not an anti-Semite. He's the last best hope for the U.S., and I think he's the last best hope for Israel, because I shudder when I think that Israel is in the hands of Obama again. He's my friend. I endorse him. He's not an anti-Semite. And I hope that this video helps a lot of Jewish people become members of Jews for Ron Paul. Thanks for listening to me.